Hello and welcome back to Talkin Pitch Side. I am your host PJ with my co-host Tony, back with our third rendition of the video podcast version here. I'm sure you've seen us on socials at this point if you're listening to this, of all of our beautiful faces exposed to the world. So we appreciate you listening in. Tony, MLS Offseason. Pretty quiet week. Anything else happen in your life? Because my life's also been quiet this week. I think we're in like the dog days of like January now, where the new year like fuzziness is kind of rubbing off now, and you're like, oh, all my things I'm done working out already. Like I've moved on from all of these things that I've wanted to do in my life, and now I'm just sad and waiting for the MLS.
Yeah, all the 2026 resolutions have already fallen on their face. I know I'm already preemptively don't really do that because I know I won't be able to hold them up.
Yeah,
But I get you. It is like it's still dark for most of the day. Around here, it just got really cold again. There's no holidays to look forward to. It's pretty dull, so you kind of have to keep yourself busy. I've been trying to do that around the house a little bit. Some projects that have started from, different Christmas presents you ask for, you kind of spin off into other things. So trying to rearrange things, nothing too crazy. I'm also just kind of refreshing Twitter to see what the next Tom Bomb's going to be. And we've got plenty to talk about whether there's a bunch of Tom Bombs or not. I think we still had some really interesting things go on. Maybe a little bit slower than in past episodes, but I think that it's still going to be a fun episode today, and get to like kind of go out and play with a little bit on this, and not necessarily talk about what's actually happening, but dream a little bit and say, oh, here's potential. So I'm excited for today.
yeah. And for all you MLS sickos out there, this is like the beginning of the preseason right now. So a lot of guys are reporting. You're getting those photos of all the players getting back together. You find out who's not showing up to your training camp, which has always been a scary thing for us FCC fans. We've had quite a few years in a row now where someone's not shown up. So I think Chris Albright jokingly said, good
Yeah.
news, everyone showed up to work this week. So that was positive to hear. And I know there's a big one out there that we'll talk about later in the podcast of someone not showing up. But let's get into it. So there, like I said, it wasn't a crazy week, but there are some big stories within the there wasn't a large amount of stories, but there's a big story within these stories that we do have. And I think we've got to start with Chucky Lozano. The drama that unfolded at the end of last year is now carried over into 2026. He has been said to be out of San Diego's plans heading into 2026. So Heaps GM comes in, sporting director just publicly announces it on their media day, and everyone was shocked because it's just not usually something you publicly announce because that's like a leverage thing at that point in terms of negotiations
Right.
with other teams. I think everyone assumed they were trying to get rid of him anyway, so I don't think he really cared. I think it was just kind of like public knowledge. And the ripple effect now, so everyone goes, oh, where's he going? Back to Liga MX? Or is he going to Liga MX? Is he going to go to a different MLS team? Regardless of the situation, they're gonna have to eat a lot of that money. But then it comes out where Chucky Lozano is stating, I'm not leaving. I want to stay. So now we have this like tug and pull of like who's gonna win this. My assumption is he's gonna go. I can't imagine that if the sporting director is publicly stating you're not in the plans, that you're just gonna suddenly be in the plans. But it is interesting because it's like a weird leverage thing now that San Diego has to try and get him off the roster. And I've got to imagine they're going to have to eat upwards of 5 to 6 million of that. I think it's like $7.5 million salary that he's owed. So it is just not a good spot. You feel for San Diego fans in that sense because now you've got a DP slot you can't fill until he's gone,
Right.
and you're going to be waiting around for this drama to end.
Yeah, that's the trick with this is that right now, Chuki's like saying he wants to be there, and the only way you can get him off the books is if you buy him out. And that's, like you said, a very expensive buyout. And you can make statements to the public, even drop his price. I think that was the purpose of that, was to maybe move a move along. But at the end of the day, he's there right now, and he's holding that roster spot, and he's camping on that money. And it's kind of the card we've seen Chucky play, in the postseason too, where got in trouble, something internally, we don't know the details. He didn't get put on the 18 in a playoff game. Then he made this big public statement on, Instagram saying, "I'm so sorry, I'm here for my team," all this and that. And then he only makes the bench, and I think only plays like 45 or 30 minutes in their last game. So it's one of those things where we've seen that like breakup makeup thing that Chuky's
Hmm.
been playing, and you don't truly know. I don't have the brain of Chucky Lozano. I don't talk to him, but sometimes it makes me wonder if we've seen the just the drama with him everywhere he goes. There's usually not very much contentness at whatever team he's on. But just kind of wonder if like he gets upset, has these fits, and then looks and says, "Where else am I gonna get paid? This kind of money. I can't screw this up. I can't get kicked off this team." And you have that give and take, yeah. So I think that is a little bit of what's at play here, and I'm not sure there's an obvious resolution to this. Like you say, like, oh, I'm sure they're moving on from it, but like I don't think they want to eat that cost, and I think they'd rather have a ghost DP slot than buy out that contract as it is at the moment.
I
Um,
mean, he's going to get the money regardless. So it's about whether you want to move on quickly or slowly pay that out. And I think that's just the tug and pull of the situation is, do you want to get someone in now to fill that DP slot and help the team immediately in 2026, or
mhm.
do you want to wait and see if you can get at least some money off the books for him eventually?
Right. But here's the thing is that he's guaranteed 7.6 million every year through 2028.
Yeah.
Like that all of that money is coming out of somebody's pocket that they may not have. Like I'm not sure that we're going to see San Diego, you know, do that to get someone off the books, let alone bring someone in. I mean that we're talking about Sung Hyung Min money to transfer in with what they're going to buy out for Chucky if that were the case. So they have to move him on, and I'm not sure that there's a great case to move him on, and a case that he would agree to, knowing, like I said, that he makes what he does, that he's going to get that kind of money elsewhere. So it's a really a catch 22 is really sticky. Honestly, I have no idea where this thing could go, but I think it's got a few more twists and turns before we hear the end of it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, if a team, say San Diego's like, hey, RSL is wanting to, I'm just throwing hypotheticals out there, pay only 1 million of his salary all for the remaining years. Like instead of just keeping him on our books, like let's just do that. Like we'll eat this money and we'll do
Yeah,
that. And like you've got to imagine there's at least some MLS teams out there kicking the tires in this. I know it's a little scary because of who he's been in the locker room for a lot of teams he's been on. But like talent wise, like when Chucky Lozano played, he was good.
yeah,
Like when he was not hurt or had drama, he was very productive on the field. So the talent is still there. It's just, are you able to manage the ego a little bit? I think is where a lot of people are stuck on right now. So will be interesting. I my bold predictions. I think it's going to be figured out by week one. Like I think I don't see him on the roster week one. I think he's going to be on another MLS team or a Liga MX team. I think they're going to make it happen, and even if it is eating a lot of that salary going forward. Okay, well let's move on here. Another big story coming in the MLS. Breaking news: Josh Sargent, who has been rumored to come to the MLS in the past, FCC actually agreed to personal terms with Josh. I think it was 2 years ago to come to FCC, and the clubs in Norwich and FCC couldn't come to a deal, so it didn't happen. So this isn't something new for Josh Sargent. Like I know Tom's report on it, where it's almost like a homebody type of feel thing. Like he really cares about his family situation, and he had an offer to go to Bundesliga during this past offseason and turn it down, like to be a starting striker on a Bundesliga team, because he just had no interest in going back to Bundesliga. So I think this is something where it's a balance of maybe he's trying to get one last shot for the World Cup, and he's playing. Like, I mean, he's coming off a team of the season play in the championship, so it's not like his club play hasn't been there. I just don't know if it's a combination of wanting to return to North America a little bit, and also just maybe this is one last chance to get in that World Cup squad. But I haven't even said the team. He is being rumored to go to Toronto as the DP9. So there's been a meme going around. Tony predicted that the ninth best striker in the MLS this upcoming year would be Toronto's future DP9. Tony, if they get Josh Sargent, he's going to be higher than number 9 on that list. So I get all there's a lot of discourse about this, and I think a lot of people get passionate because whenever you see U.S. men's national team players come back to the MLS, people all get up in all their arms, and they think they should be in Europe and starting in the Prem. That's just not in the cards for everybody. And Josh Sargent has been an excellent championship player, and clearly has not done enough to make it in the U.S. men's national team squad. So I don't think a move like this for a guy in that situation is a bad thing at all. And for Toronto, it's a no-brainer to get a guy in the prime or early prime of his career that's already performing the way he is at club level. I mean, in my mind, he's coming on, and my expectation for Josh Sargent is he's a 20-goal scorer in the MLS. Like that's the type of player you could be getting, especially pairing with Mihailovic now in that attack.
Yeah, I think you could go a lot of ways with this. I mean, well, starting with like the motives and stuff, I have a feeling I think this is more about the family thing than it is the World Cup. I think that he's kind of aware of that he's not really in the plans with that, and that kind of felt that way in his last appearances with the national team. And I think that most people watching that game would say they'd feel that way about Josh Sargent coming back into the squad too. It just didn't really seem like it was clicking. And kind of historically, he's been one of those players that uh, club success has not translated to country success. So I don't know that, that's really the motive. I think, I mean, maybe a little bit, sure. But it's not like he's not getting minutes at Norwich.
Mm-hmm.
And while they are in a relegation battle right now, it is something where, by the time the World Cup comes, it's not like he's going to be like fighting for a transfer, or, battling it out in League One, and, his stock kind of drops just from being there. I don't think that's the case. I do think, like you said, it's a little bit of the homebody, wanting to do it in MLS. We never really got to see him, play in MLS. So that part is inherently interesting. Obviously a lot of comparisons with MLS to the English Championship. And so, uh, people find them very comparable leagues, and if Sargent has success in the championship, then that should mean success in MLS, right? I I'm not sure I'm completely sold on that. I like him in my top 10. Honestly, I don't know if I'd move him past the 9 slot for me, which, is where I put him, so I'm going to stay there. But I think that for me, where what this really boils down to is Mihailovic is there to give him the service, and that's about it in Toronto. And this is going to be a big part of proving himself to me. I think that Norwich has other people that they can lean on, although they are really claiming and making this kind of tough for Toronto to buy him. And honestly, like the price right now is,
They just went and got MLS talent to help
yeah, yeah,
serve
right.
Josh
Ali
Sargent up
Ahmed, let's
front.
go. Come on.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. So like they respect MLS, but I don't know. It sounds like they are being really reluctant on holding on to him, and I think it
Yeah.
makes sense in some ways. I mean, we're talking about again your starting striker in a relegation battle team, especially like you said, early prime. But they're getting a heavy fee, and it may be worth it, but I think that that's inflated due to the circumstances. And so, like you were talking about, like a 20-goal striker, I don't know if I'd go that far with Josh Sargent in MLS, and I think that like this kind of fee and the DP tag, I think maybe just put a little bit too much pressure onto what he's going to be in this league. I think that he's going to be a good DP. I think he's going to be a good striker. I mean, I'm still holding, I'm telling you, top 10, but 20 goals and being as explosive, like, I don't think he's going to, Latte Loth, let's put him to the side for this conversation. I don't think he's going to hold up, the numbers that the other people in that top 5 transfers of all time list that are in this league right now are putting up. I'm not sure he's going to be that for Toronto. Um, I think that's too big of an expectation for him, and the price is as high as it is because of the timing for Norwich. So, um, that
Yeah, I
being
think
said, it's a good get, but that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying this season he'd be a 20 goal scorer. What in my mind makes this a no brainer for Toronto is if he's making this move at this point in his career, like in my mind that might be Josh Sargent in the MLS for the rest of his career. Like it's just a weird time to make that move where if you're Toronto, you could be looking at having your striker for the next 4 to 5 years. Like if everything goes great. And then I think that's why the price tag is what it is. And I think it's not across the line. So this all may be for naught because Josh didn't show up to the last game.
Yeah.
Like he texted the coach and said, "I'm not in the right headspace with all the transfer stuff. I'm not going to play." And the coach was not happy. Like he was very frustrated, and he publicly stated in an interview after the game and said Josh is not going anywhere. So we've kind of got this tug and pull. Now people have made those claims before, and the player's been out a week later. So I don't think there's a ton of stock in that. I think that's more of a frustrated manager in the situation that they're in a relegation battle. But I really do think Josh has the talent level to continue to go up. Like he almost was a 20 goal scorer in the championship, and I he was just coming off a championship best 11, and that's at the age of 24. So I just think that he has the talent to continue to grow. I think what he needs to improve on is the ball being played through him a lot more, and that's the expectation of what's going to happen. And having Mihailovic helps there a lot to take that pressure off him. But if you're an $18 million striker, the expectation is we can play the ball up to you and you're not just tapping it in. Like you need to do more than that. You need to create for others and be dynamic. And I think he has that talent level. And I think we all get a little bit of scared feet because we've watched him the most on the national team because like let's all put a hand up. We're not always tuning in for Norwich games. And I think that gets in a lot of people's minds of being like, this is what I've seen. And that's definitely not a DP $18 million striker, what we've seen out of Josh with the national team. So that's the concern, which I think is completely valid. But I do think for Toronto, I love what they're trying to do. Like, I really do love what they're trying to build. I mean, just going for U.S. men's national team talent is what it really feels like in Zimmerman, Mihailovic, and Sargent. But they're going completely opposite of what they did with the Italians. Like it's just like
Yeah.
they were like, hey, let's go outside of America, let's go to North America and get some real talent here that were what they thought was real talent. And now they're really going to guys like Mihailovic and Zimmerman, especially, being like, let's go get MLS proven North American talent and build around that. And honestly, Tony, that's what worked for Toronto back when they were the Toronto of old. Like they had North American talent that was MLS proven, and it felt like you were going to get the crap beat out of you every time you played against Toronto in back in the 2010s. So I think that's what they're trying to do, and I just give them my claps because I think that they're going about this a much better way, much more professional way, and of course they still need much more than just Josh Sargent to get this all to work. But I think this is all leading to like steps in the right direction. And I think that's where you've got to appreciate, if you're a Toronto fan, the ambition to not just sit on all this lost money with the Italians and just be like, okay, we need to recoup for a while. But they're immediately going out and being like, let's build this thing correctly and spend money to do so. So I think that's the positives I've seen from Toronto.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I mean, like you said, it's the building up from nothing, which, all right, it's they kind of are
The
just
draw
benefiting
kings.
from how bad they were because our expectations are so low for them. But I do think that is one of those things where certainly the floor keeps raising with every move that they've made so far this offseason. So, I'm bringing my hesitancy with Sargent to not say that he won't be a good striker, is that I don't know if he'll be a great striker.
Mm-hmm.
So I alone, like, it's an improvement over their current situation, improvement over the Italians. The hope and dream for it is that, like you said, it's the 2010s Toronto that mimics, Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley. Will it get there? We'll just have to see. That's big shoes to fill for a team that made 3 straight MLS Cups. So we'll watch that. Obviously, I'll be there no matter what. But I don't know if that's the kind of level output you can expect from this Toronto team just yet. But again, leaps and strides from where they've been, where they're starting. Just this time a year ago. like we were talking about this
Hmm.
preseason, and just automatically putting Toronto at the very bottom of all our power rankings. And that was like the one team everybody was right on, you know. So it's not that anymore. They're probably a fringe playoff team at my guess now. That's my live power ranking at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah. I would not be shocked as of right if this transfer goes through. I would not be
Yeah.
shocked if Toronto is in the playoffs this upcoming year. Like I think that's my expectation when you bring in guys like that they have brought in. Okay, let's move on to another big transfer here. A guy that we all thought was going to New York Red Bulls for about 6 months, Timo Werner, former Spurs, Chelsea, and Leipzig man, is going to San Jose. I think everyone's reaction was the same when this came out. Was that has to be like a mistake? Like San Jose, like where did that come from? And I think two positives to take of this from San Jose perspective as a team, just getting better. I think he adds an element to the attack. I know Timo Werner. I mean, I'm a Spurs fan, so I watched him personally. Has had his finishing problems. I think being in a league like the MLS is gonna be helpful for him with that in terms of just confidence. Like he knows he's the best player on a team, like type confidence, and maybe that's true or not, but I think that's what he's being paid to do. So I think that will be good. I still think they need a lot more like Espinoza. Like this isn't an Espinoza replacement by any means. Like that's not what he does. He's not gonna go out and create a bunch of chances. He's there to score goals, and that's what they're bringing him in to do. Um, from a San Jose and MLS perspective, broader, this is really cool. Like no, in no way would San Jose in years past of the MLS be getting a here we go from Fabrizio Romano because that is like I think that's showing where the growth of the league is. That teams that aren't LA, New York, Miami are able to bring in guys like Timo Werner. And I know Timo Werner's not like a top 10 player of all time. That's not what I'm saying. But Timo Werner's still 29, has had a very decorated past, won Champions League, won Premier Leagues. Like the dude has been a winner and he has scored a ton of goals for Leipzig. Like leading Bundesliga type scoring goals season. So I just think that this is cool for the MLS to see a guy like this go to not one of the biggest names in the league. And you're seeing these smaller market teams be able to pull guys like this in is great for the MLS as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that was a regular on the German national team, and like, I mean, obviously going to MLS probably will not get him back on that national team, but there, I don't think that it's a done deal that he has never played for that German national team again. And that's the kind of caliber move. It's the Thomas Mueller to Vancouver. It's the Schweinsteiger to Chicago. I'm just happening to also mention other Germans here, but the idea of like, hey, these big name guys, or maybe like not like A tier guys, but the A minus, the B plus tier guys are the ones that are still hitting this league and hitting this league in markets that can use that jolt. And think about, like, again, kind of backing up your broader perspective here, like, does that make San Jose, like, when they come to town, does your ticket price go up a little bit? Does your stadium get a little bit fuller? Like, when's the last time we were talking about that with them, And the answer is never, by the way. Um, that's the cool thing about this move. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you hear talking heads say, like, when people are upset about Miami and they say, well, your team needs to try harder, like that is really short-winded, and there's no backup to that at all. But I think this is really what is meant. Like, we don't know all the details yet of this deal between San Jose and Timo Werner, but I'm sure it's ambitious. And Red Bulls like had a stare down with Timo Werner and lost. Whatever Timo Werner was asking for was more than other teams were willing to pay. But that's the risk that San Jose is going to take. They're going to say, "Yeah, we'll pay you. Come on over. Here, this is Chicho Arango. You're going to be best friends with him." Like, it's that kind of thing that it's a team that's taking a risk and getting after it and being bold, and that's what I appreciate out of this from like an MLS perspective. From the on-field perspective now, this is a guy that's played 13 minutes in the last year or something like that. It is really astounding. Now, to add on to his profile that you were mentioning, PJ, like he's a pretty athletic finisher. A lot of you watch his highlight reel and he is running all over the place. He's contorting his body to make crazy finishes. That kind of thing, San Jose would love. Now it's going to be hard to envision San Jose without Espinoza for the first little bit of this season until we kind of see that in action. But San Jose historically, the last few years have been all gas, no brakes. And I think that you talked
That's
about putting
Timo
Timo Werner. Yeah.
That's what he is.
Yeah. And you put him in a volume chance system. And I think that there's a really real possibility that he could do some damage in this league. But, it's hard to say. We don't even know if he's still got the cardio, from just, he's not sitting around. But to not have that game sense or game intensity for a really long time, I think that does do a number. And he'll have a full preseason with the team. I'm sure they'll get that up pretty well. But it's just one of those things where until you see it again, the car has not been driven for a long time. Do we need, is it going to start the first time? We don't know. So that part of it is the interesting, intriguing part of it is what does he look like? Is he Timo Werner of old? Is it a different version that we're just not familiar with because we haven't seen in a while? Will we see moments of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. This guy did play for the German national team. That makes sense. This guy did play for Chelsea and Leipzig and all those guys. So that's the part that I just find delicious about this move is from the on-field part of it. So it's awesome in a lot of ways for, people like us that are talking about it. I think it's awesome for San Jose unless it's like a mega flop, like a Shaqiri level flop. I don't think it's going to be that. Hopefully, fingers crossed, right? But they can't afford that. But this is a good thing for everybody, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of Timo's game is his pace, and like I said, he's still only 29. This is not like even Messi coming in where he's like 34, 35. Like he's still technically in like the prime of his career, and that's where it's interesting because I think in the Bruce Arena system, I mean, this guy's going to get chances. Like they're still going to allow a ton of goals. It doesn't fix anything like that, but San Jose is going to get their chances, and I think a dream scenario like him and Chicho, this is a ton of goals they could potentially have between these two guys up front, and I think that's where this is interesting, because I think that best case scenario, like I could legitimately see like an 18 goal scorer in Timo Werner in this league. I think worst case scenario is exactly what we've talked about, where the guy hasn't played at times over even the past couple years. When he did play, it was inconsistent. And I think that's like worst case scenarios. He comes across thinking this is going to be easier for him, and it's not.
Yeah.
And I really hope it's not that because I think it would be great for the league to see a guy like Timo go to San Jose and have success. So let's fingers crossed, San Jose fans. We're hoping for the best for you because that'll make the league super entertaining. Let's go through some departures here, Tony. We've got a couple guys leaving, pretty significant names leaving. Luis Muriel, of course, is leaving Orlando. This was expected. This did not work really at any point. There was some flashes here and there, but overall, a very big failure at Orlando. And I think this is going to put a lot of pressure on Duncan McGuire. Like, this is like them being like, hey, this is your chance again. Like, this is you got to go and take this. I'm just concerned because I don't think Duncan McGuire stays healthy for more than 8 games at a time. And they're kind of putting all their eggs in this basket as it sits right now. I mean, they may go get somebody like that could happen, but I just don't have a ton of confidence in this attack right now in terms of the striker position. And I mean, it can be proven wrong very easily. Duncan McGuire was an excellent striker 2 to 3 years ago. Like, dude was about to go to the championship if papers didn't get messed up in the process. Like that's how close this guy was to taking it to the next level. And then it's just been injury after injury, like fluke injuries too. Like I think didn't he like separate his shoulder twice at one point?
At least once. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he separated the same shoulder twice in a season. And it's just been thing after thing. And I think if you're Orlando, like you're just hoping you get that guy back. But I think I'm a little hesitant right now for the situation that they're in.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that it puts a lot of pressure on Duncan McGuire, but again, we're talking about an expectation thing here, and Luis Muriel like just set the bar so low, and that was what was really disappointing about him. So what was disappointing about taking up a DP spot, which will now be opened up if the Muriel move out goes through. So I think that if you are a fan of the purple and gold, you are rooting for this. Like there's no doubt about that. And in the meantime, it's a little late to put together another DP signing, I would think, or one that's maybe a like to like starting striker. Um, but they can move in. Right now, they have three DPs with Muriel involved. It'd be two if not, and that would be Martin Ojeda and Marco Pasalic would be their two DPs. They could easily, for the first half of the season, say, okay, Muriel out. We'll take our time on this next DP signing. In the meantime, we'll report as a 2DP for U22 team, collect some extra GAM, a million extra GAM along the way, and then look at pivoting potentially in the summer. I think that's a smart, wise move for them, especially given that, I know you've mentioned concerns with McGuire and health, and I think that's certainly valid. But you also know that like you're not just leaving the keys to nobody. It is a guy who has seen some heights in this league and got cut short by a lot of injuries, and we've seen potential to Europe, as you mentioned. So I think that that's someone that you can be confident in trusting, at least for the temporary. So I like that move for Orlando. That's what I would hope that they would move, just to be smart about it. And at the same time, maybe they look at Duncan McGuire's a little bit more longer term, and you don't put a DP at striker, you put a DP at left wing, or you put a DP as more of an 8 or whatever. You'd move that direction and let McGuire really do his thing and find his form. So I think there's options there with that, but the key is that Muriel leaving is the linchpin of a lot of potential growth for Orlando.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally agree. It'll be interesting to see what they do here. Another guy leaving. I I was not shocked because of this how good this guy is, but I was shocked at this person leaving, and that's Kellen Acosta leaving Chicago and the MLS in general. He, I just like never thought I'd see Kellen Acosta outside the MLS, and I'm shocked that we're getting it at this point. I think Berhalter brought him in as just like one of his guys that he knew and trusted, and I just assumed that he'd be there for longer than this one season. I know he didn't have the best of seasons at Chicago this past year, but I just envision that still continuing for one more year at least. And yeah, I mean it's gonna be weird. We're gonna have the MLS season without Kellen Acosta. When's the last time we could say that?
Yeah, it's been a long time. He was pretty heavy on the books. He was a TAM player.
Mm-hmm.
He was making 1.6 million a year. So that part I think is tough for Chicago to match. Now, that being said, I think he was at a guaranteed year in 2026. So to see him leave, I guess, and a club option for 2027. So felt maybe a little bit early in the contract to maybe try and renegotiate with him to get him to settle down on a smaller deal. But I mean, he's probably and rightfully so chasing his bag, and I think that all good on the player for
Yeah.
that. Your playing career is only for a very specific amount of time. You got to make what you can make when you got that opportunity. So that's the bummer of it, is that he has had a lot of injuries in the past, and we've not really gotten to enjoy the Kellen Acosta, like prime Kellen Acosta is what he was. And that was, unfortunately, a lot of that was spent on pre-Greg Berhalter Chicago Fire when they really struggled to be relevant. But I will never forget the miracle in the Windy City when he lobbed up that extra
That
time goal
goal. That
from
was
70 yards out or whatever it was. Yeah.
all time MLS goal. If you don't watch it, it's the true MLS Sicko goal. And
Yes.
I mean, he just launches it, not intending to shoot the ball by any means. And the
No.
Chicago wind takes that thing maybe 20 yards back and forth, and it just perfectly gets in the net. And the celebrations are hilarious because there was a horrible, like I think it was snowing, like it was a horrible day. So there's like nobody in the crowd,
Yeah,
and the players are just going nuts because he just scored this goal from like half field, and it's like there's
crazy to
you
win
see
it. Yeah.
trash blowing around. Like it was an MLS sicko goal to the max.
Yeah, and I think it capped like a late like 2 goal deficit
Yeah,
game. Like
yeah,
they were down like 4-2 with like 10, 15 minutes left, ended
yeah.
up winning 5-4 or something like that. So just electric city there. But um thank you, Kellen Acosta, for the memories. It's gonna be sad to see you go. But I mean, hey, you're getting yours, so I appreciate that. From a Chicago standpoint, I mean, definitely, like I said, maybe being a little bit conservative with just avoiding, landing on a player that has some value and losing that to free agency rather than, getting a sale done. And then outside of that too, I mean, they have a lot of options now at center mid. That was a really crowded midfield room for Kellen Acosta, a guy who just was coming back from injury a lot. It's hard to break through. Um, so I think it makes sense on both sides. It's just a shame, to see him move.
Yeah, totally. Last MLS story here before we get into some national team topics. Kind of a non-story, really. So Tristan Blackman, of course, we talked about last podcast, was rumored to be going to Miami, and they were trying that. And I think it was ended up being reported they wanted to do a $3 million cash for fee to try and get him, which would be like the highest ever for a center back at this point. And you kind of say that, I'm like, that is interesting that Vancouver like didn't even like take it, but I think there probably had to be some of it being like this team just beat us in the MLS Cup final. I'm not just going to give my best player aspect to that as well. So it was before he's going to go. Was turned out immediately. The owner was like, "We're not selling him. Like we want to sign him to a new contract." Preseason, like I said, started this week, and Tristan Blackman did not show up to the first day of preseason. And then all the rumors started circulating back around again, being like, "Oh my gosh, does he actually want to move?" Because I think Dane St. Clair was in his comment sections being like eye emojis and things like that. So lots of stuff
Yeah.
going on. And then now it's all of a sudden he's reporting to camp. They're going to Spain for some preseason tour thing. And so kind of like end up being a non-story. I got to imagine he's going to get his contract. Like he's paid pretty low. I think it's only like 500,000 a year right now. So for MLS Defender of the Year, it's pretty insignificant. So I got to imagine Vancouver's just going to get the contract done. I hope for Vancouver fans that's what's going to happen. And let's just leave it at that. Let's hope he stays, and I think that's great for the MLS if Tristan Blackman's staying at Vancouver.
Yeah, and you never know. Again, when we're talking about the rumor mill and where those originate, like that is some serious fuel to the fire when the owner comes out and says, "Hey, we're keeping Blackman. We want to renegotiate." Because now Blackman's coming back to the table and saying, "Well, you want me here, don't you? Like, why you and upping the value that way." So that is where I think things get really interesting. Not saying that his camp is the originator of that whatsoever, and the way that that statement was written too was kind of a they confirmed like while like Miami did reach out, but it was very brief and like we're not in any kind of talks or anything like that. So I think that that's just one of those things that again you talk about the minutia like that's at play there. Again, all ends up probably being a non-story. We can't say that officially till the
Probably.
ink's on the on the paper, but it seems very likely. I mean, he's showing back up to camp, and a day late, maybe again to put a little bit of heat, but I just have a hard time seeing that at this point in the season, unless he throws an absolute pout on this tour, which we've seen before. Players do this and say they want their move, and they're then they get trained alone, and shout out Lucho, and that can happen. But I don't really take Tristan Blackman as that kind of guy. Um, I mean, I could be wrong there, but it just doesn't really seem like that's kind of how he carries himself. So yeah, that's where he's at with the new deal. Which, by the way, 800,000 a year, and he is under
Okay.
contract this season, this 2026 season, with club option for next season. So it is kind of a turning point here. Whether it's a make or break for if they're going to re-sign him versus sell him. So, and obviously they're very loud about keeping him. So
Yeah.
that is certainly something to watch because, like you mentioned, MLS Defender of the Year, that should come with a pretty hefty price tag. How that gets balanced with their budget charge. He's already a TAM player, so if you give him too much of a raise, he can't be a DP. You've already got the DPs filled out with Kubas, Ryan Gauld, and Thomas Muller, of course. So there's a pretty small runway, I'd say, for where Vancouver can land this Blackman contract, and hopefully for both parties, it's something that Blackman's satisfied with. So there is a little bit of squeeze there. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat that. That'll be interesting to see how it gets done. But yeah, he doesn't have a lot of room to get much more of a raise. So I don't know how that looks. If maybe it's a structured like cheaper now, more expensive later, or something like that. But yeah, they're going to have to get a little crafty, I think, with that.
Yeah, I mean, if a little raise is $700,000, I'll take that little raise all day, every day. Feel free to send it over here, Tristan Blackman.
Yeah, I'll take a fraction of that little raise.
Okay, well, before we get into national team talk, just a quick hitter. I asked it like to a degree last week. Is there somebody you've been like even more so now, like continue this week? You've had a great offseason that you're like, this is a team that I'm looking out for. Like maybe not like the Miamis of the world, but someone that's like I'm liking what they're building here. I'm liking what they're starting to build.
Yeah, I'll start with a few honorable mentions with this one. The main ones are DC. I think that similar to the Toronto vein, a lot of floor raising moves. Barabo, obviously on top of that, but even Nealis, Sean Johnson, just to name a few that it feels like, okay, this is not going to be a wooden spoon contender anymore. Do I think they'll be flirting with the playoffs like I think Toronto will be? No. But I do think that they're not fighting for the wooden spoon, and that in itself is a large improvement. Houston Dynamo is the next one on the list. We've talked about them a lot too. It sounds like the Bogusz move is getting closer. So that's a good thing when you already talk about we mentioned the flexibility in the midfield and linking up with Jack McGlynn and those kind of things, as well as bringing Hector Herrera back, and Markanich also signing with them, which I'm not sure we mentioned in the last one, but a little news bit that we had this week, who is a set piece warrior for Minnesota, and another just confusing let from them. The opposite answer, my least favorite offseason, has definitely been Minnesota this year, but we'll move on. And then the last one, this is my sneaky pick for honorable mention, is Austin. Have not heard a lot from them, but we got Jaden Nelson on board now. They sold Bukhari for $7 million, which is just a crazy fee to get rid of him and clean the books on. I'm going to count this as a new arrival, and Brandon Vasquez just coming back. There's a few things to like there that I think we have not given them a lot of airtime for, and I think that they've subtly made themselves a little bit better team too. But ultimately, as you can tell from the glazing I've already done so far, my favorite offseason is Toronto. Again, I kind of almost look at this as who's most improved over the offseason. And so obviously Toronto takes the cake there just from how wild of a turnaround they've had, and just the trajectory of throwing around dollar signs for Josh Sargent and all that. So I like Toronto the best.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was gonna, if I had one to pick, it would be Houston for me. I just think I'm trying to think of the teams that are raising their floor and the moves that they're making, and I think when you bring in guys like Bogusz, especially, you're raising your floor, and I think Herrera is not a bad move by any means, but I think it's more so the presence that he'll have in that locker room. I think is what's going to affect that team, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do this year. Okay, let's get into some international talk here, Tony. First to start, we've got some dual nationals that are playing for Mexico in this upcoming window. We've got Richie Ledesma and Brian Gutierrez. Well, guys we know well. Richie Ledesma has been on USA youth national teams for the most part, and has been very good. He's battled quite a few injuries here as of recently. Has this weird thing going on where he wants guarantees from the Mexico national team that he's going to play he's going to make the World Cup roster if he's going to switch. from the U.S. to Mexico. So that's an interesting storyline. And Brian Gutierrez, sorry, we've talked about, of course, coming from Chicago now going to League MX. This one is just like very obvious. Like it's been well documented that he was going to do this because he's just not going to get the opportunity with the U.S. national team with that midfield. And I think that this is a good move for him. And I think that both these guys could have a legitimate shot to make the national team as a rotation piece if they impress here in this upcoming camp.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at this as kind of a pendulum. When it comes to dual nationality, like a lot of times you're going to go to the team, like if you are dual nat, you're going to go to the team where you feel like you have the best chance of playing, improving your stock, so on and so forth. And kind of like you mentioned, Brian Gutierrez has some really stiff competition to get in. Richie Ledesma, I mean, that's not different either. But um, the Mexican national team is certainly one that is looking a lot different than USA right now in terms of momentum and just where things fall as a program. And so I think you just see this swing where it's okay, who has the more opportunity for fresh faces, more playing time, all of that. And right now, the answer is just flat out Mexico. And as someone who roots for the U.S. national team, like, am I bummed to see both of them, go? Yeah, but at the same, and I don't think they're actually capped yet. But I think
No, so
that
this wouldn't be official. Like they still
correct.
have to declare. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same, like, I mean, it's still like, oh man, that stings to see them go on the other side of the rivalry there. But it makes a ton of sense, and that's like we've benefited from that as well as the national team. I mean, look at Dest picking us over. I mean, it's a little bit different, but
Pepe.
like Pappy picking us, Balogun picking us. I'm missing one more key one here. Jedi Robinson picking us. Like these are guys that you know when they have reached the heights that they've reached, I think that it's not too crazy to say that like Jedi Robinson could have made a spot on the English national team and Des to make the Netherlands team and so on and so forth. So like that's how the pendulum swings. We were at a low point, and that's what made that attractive to Balogun to say, "Hey, dude, you're gonna be our guy." If you sign up to be in USA. So um, that's ultimately what I view this as, rather than a bad blood kind of thing. It's more of a, again, I got to get mine. I got to boost my stock. This is where it's going to be. It's with Mexico right now, and they're believing that vision at least for the short term. So um, it's kind of one of the realities of and weird quirks of how our national game works and how you can switch which country you represent.
Yeah, totally. Couple of quick hitters here before we get into a couple of questions to finish us off. We've got just want to highlight really quick. Weston McKennie, just the dude just continues to ball out. Like he's winning man of the matches, coming off a goal and assist in the midweek. I think he had the goal. What could have been two goals and assists because they didn't count one of them because they counted as an own goal, even though the ball was going in the net. The guy just tried to clear it and kicked it into the side of the net. And so we've got the whole story of him maybe coming back to the MLS after the World Cup. There's now reports coming out today that two Premier League teams at least have already reached out to him about bringing him back to the Premier League. Of course, he had that brief stint in with
Yeah.
Leeds that kind of gets forgotten in there because of how not I don't I would say he played horrible, just that Leeds team was not in a good spot when he came across to play with Tyler Adams over at Leeds. But I just want to give him some appreciation. I think at one point over the last 6 months, there was some doubt from a couple people being like, is Weston McKennie going to start for the U.S. national team? Like, I think that was a legitimate conversation because I think we were going through the Weston McKennie offseason cycle, which was he's got to earn his place back at Juventus. He hasn't been playing super well. And then he comes out, and every year he does this exact same thing, and he plays really well and has now started 23 straight games for Juventus. Like, this guy is a stud. Like, he performs for the U.S. men's national team at a super high level every time he's with the team, and he is performing at a super high level for Juventus, where a manager that really trusts him is playing him every single day. And you're seeing it on display. Like, he's scoring, he's assisting, he's doing it all for Juventus at this point. And I it's not even a question that he's going to be starting for the U.S. men's national team come the World Cup because he is a game changer when he's on the field. Like that is just he's one of probably like 3 to 4 guys you can pencil in as no brainers. This guy's starting no matter what.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it as a US fan is having that confidence back in him and really being excited knowing that the top places on the club game are calling for him. And like so consequently you see him like perform at the top level against the top teams because those are the people he play against in clubs. So I like that a lot for us. Obviously, I think a lot of people do. And, yeah, again, it reignites that conversation we've had in the past. Like I think it'd be cool if he came back to MLS, but I don't want him to be the guinea pig with that. Like I want him to reach the highest heights he can with that and
Yeah,
then
let,
hit
let it be
MLS
Josh
later.
Sargent.
Yeah, exactly. So he got swapped right in. Nobody even noticed. Bait and switch. There it was.
They look
Um,
identical. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like this is not who we bought, but yeah, no, that's the thing. Like if he can play in the Premier League again, especially it's tough knowing who those Premier League teams were, what those situations are, because you don't want him going into another Leeds again. You don't want the relegation battle and the mar that puts on your name, and just kind of seems to immediately let people write you off for being able to play at that level. So like obviously it's got to be the right situation. It's got to be a middle tier team where they're not talking about him like they talk about him at Juventus. Like I like to see that kind of stability for him. So there is some caveats with that statement, but it's not surprising at all to see he's getting calls from other leagues that are prestigious, and we got to get him out of Juventus. I think I'm done with that saga. Like he's doing great there, and that's I think what upsets me the most is that like he does great there. We give him a highlight like once a month, and he's played 10 different like all positions except for goalie
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and they still just write him off. It's like he needs to go somewhere that's valued like that. I think that's the next step for him is like, okay, like he's proven himself. He can fit a lot of molds, but what if he's on a team that like they mold around him and let him
Yeah.
really shine at what he's good at. So like that's a part that maybe MLS would be good for. But I think that if that is somewhere possible in a top five league, that's the best thing, broad picture for the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah. I agree. The last note I've got here, we don't really need to go too in depth with this one because I talked about him last podcast. Chris Richards won U.S. Player of the Year. I think this is totally deserved. We talked about him becoming more of a leader in that clubhouse, which is awesome. But also at a club level, winning the FA Cup with Crystal Palace, becoming an everyday starter with Crystal Palace. In terms of a guy that I think had a growth, I think this is the perfect guy to win this award this year. Like he is just all upwards. That's all it is. And I think this was the right person for this award. I don't know if you have any 2 cents about that.
Yeah, I mean, he just really took a leadership role this year, and was vocal, like was a great leader, not just like on the field with his performances and being able to trust him based on his rise at club level, but also just like a guy that's communicating to the team through the media, and just saying like screw a friendly, we're gonna fight, like that kind of stuff. I think has been a really big rallying point for the late 2025 resurgence of the national team. And so I think it's earned, and it's not just the on the field stuff. I think it's all over. He's just really grown a lot into his role and been a player that I think we want to model a lot of younger players to be like, hey, this is how you take your next steps, and really develop our team. So I like. I mean, obviously, I like Chris Richards. You like Chris Richards. We all like Chris Richards, but I think it's just a really well deserved award, and I'm not sure that really came close to anybody else this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, to finish us off here, we've got 2 questions. The first one being, which host country has the best chance to win their group in the 2026 World Cup? Um, I'll start. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna take the loser way out here and not really pick one, but I
Oh,
think USA and Mexico have an equal chance. I mean, I'm going to be biased
hmm.
and say USA. I think probably has the best chance, but I'm going to speak on Mexico. I think the home environment, if they score early, especially in these games, is a weapon. Like I think more so than it will be for America because I think the home fans in Mexico are going to be savages to a degree where they're so passionate. The problem is if they go down early, Tony, that's also going to work against them. So that's what
Yeah,
I'm scared of for Mexico. I just think that group like they can take advantage and beat South Korea. I mean, all these teams have to play a playoff team, so that's like the hard part of really guessing who's going to be getting out of here because we really don't know who all the opponents are. But I think if I had to rank, it's probably 1A USA, 1B Mexico, and then I'm not going to give Canada 2. I'm going to give them 3 because I think they're in the worst spot of all of the 3. Um, and it would just be interesting. I think all of these teams are capable of winning their group though. Like I think that's the fun part about all these the CONCACAF teams. Like we're like they can all go out there and prove themselves and are capable of it. So I like I said, I'm gonna take a loser way out, but I'll represent Mexico if you do want to take the USA train here.
I actually was not really looking at either of those when I was answering this question. So I went big on the Europe train on this one because I mean group what is this G is Belgium, Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. I think that's a runway for Belgium in my
I
opinion.
said host country.
Oh, you said host country?
Yeah, it was which host country,
Oh
Tony?
my gosh. Well, I was like, dude, Belgium and Germany. Like Germany's playing Curacao.
Well, duh. Argentina's got
Like,
a run train on their group, Tony. What are we
yeah.
talking about here?
Okay. So then let's take that back. Yeah, I mean, thank you for leaving USA for me because that's definitely how I do feel. Um, I think you probably got that ordered right. I think it's probably USA, then Mexico, then Canada, because I believe that the Canada playoff winner is could potentially be Italy, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a real cluster there in Group B. Um, Mexico, I don't know offhand who their play-in would be, but I think that Korea could give them a run for their money. I mean, we're going to see Son do what Son did to USA already. I mean, I think that's where I kind of level up USA over Mexico in this question, just because they don't have like Paraguay and Australia or was it like Hungary or something, is not going to have that kind of game breaker like Korea does. Um, so that's the part where I think I'm like, okay, that game specifically will make or break, really, I think, the outcome of the winner of that group. And I could very easily see in many worlds, Korea winning that game. Doesn't matter if you have a field of 11 Brian Gutierrez's for Mexico. I don't know if they can stop them. So that's where I'll sit with it. I'll rank it, USA A, Mexico B, Canada C.
See, if I was doing which country is the best chance to get a group, and I said Mexico and United States, I would have my ball knowledge degree stripped from me
I was like,
because
wow, he's really going alt.
I'm just going Homer status big time. Uh, and also respect Miguel Moran, game breaker. Miguel Moran, come on now.
Yeah, I miss him. Where has he been?
Yeah, Atlanta's asking the same question.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question before we send off here. Which USA player will be shockingly left off the roster? I'll let you go first on this one.
Okay. So I think that the time frame of this like is really important, and
Before
I'm
March.
yeah, I mean I know, but like, so I'm gonna say Yunus Musa is not gonna make the USA roster, and I think that right now like that is not the most surprising thing, but like if I would have told you that in March 2025, you'd be like, dude, you're on crack. There's no way. Like, and then or even earlier, like. So, and that could change. Like he could come back this year if he plays like 4 straight games, or maybe even play. Like I don't know, he just gets called up one and has 1 or 2 good games at the national level and in a friendly. Like I think that perspective, like I think people would start, kind of maybe second guessing that whole ordeal. So I don't know. Like I think this could change a lot, but right now, just in general frame, I'd say Yunus Musa. I think that like you could throw in. We kind of talked about this ahead of time, and you really poo-pooed this, and I think you're right. But like, I do worry for some of the injury-riddled folks, and like them missing the roster based on an injury, not necessarily because they got, their spot like taken from them. But you could throw a Jedi or a Dest, or a Pepe because he's going to take a while to get back into this equation, which I would hate to see any of that. Like I'm not rooting for that whatsoever, but that would be my other way of looking at that is like who is like not very likely to be healthy and we would maybe need pretty bad. So those are my two angles on that. I don't know how you took this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even go off yours and say my Yunus Musa bold prediction is that I don't think he even gets called up to March camp. Like
Yeah,
I don't see where I don't see where he gets in at all. Like I don't even know why you would waste a call up spot at this point. Like he's not playing for Atalanta as well, so it's tough for him. Mine is tough because I've been well documented on this podcast being like glazing this guy for his national team play. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I just think this would be the one that I would say if I had to go bold, it's gonna be this, and I think it's Gio Reyna. Like the dude balls out for the U.S. men's national team. Like I can't discredit that. Still, Tony, he doesn't play for Gladbach. When he does play, he doesn't play well, and he has no goals, no assists on the season. I don't know. It's going to come down to what Pochettino values from him. Is it club play or is it what you've seen at the national team level? I just think it's unfair at times, and it's not about being fair, I guess, but unfair to some of these guys that are playing so well at the club level to keep giving Gio Reyna these chances for a guy who doesn't play. So I think it's tough. I feel for him in that situation, but it's now been quite a few years of this where we're getting the Gio Reyna saga of he's not playing at this team, he's not playing at that team, and eventually it just comes down to him. Like that's just kind of where I'm at him at the club level, and for a struggling Gladbach team that he can't really get minutes, and you're seeing Joe Scally on the same exact team playing really well and scoring as a right back.
yeah.
Like that's where it's shocking. So I think that's where I went with it a little bit.
It does open up a really big kind of paradox there. It's like, okay, if you've got a player that never plays club, but he's going to ball out for you in country, like, does that disqualify him, man? Maybe that's another thing where he gets another, he's the last slot in the March camp and they see him
Yeah,
out again. And
I
if
think
he
he'll be
really
in the
looks
camp.
good,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's certainly something, but what's tough about that is like the greater good of what that may do for the team and the morale of the players because you go around and you march and you say playing time matters. You got to play at your club. You make examples out of other people. Sorry, Matt Turner, you're no longer the starting goalie anymore because of that. Matt Freese is going to be our starting keeper game one in the World Cup. You run around and you do that and you say that very loudly. Except for Gino Reyna, he can come right in and he can play for us and like
well,
that like
and he's
yeah,
already a guy that's created drop. Like he like
yes,
ruined the last World Cup. Like that,
right,
the vibes around that team were so bad because of him. So that's where I think this is like could all play out where he's just not on the team, and I'm not gonna be upset. Like we have so many players at that position, so it's not like we won't have talent. I also just don't know how Poch is gonna treat the March camp because that's also like one of the last warm ups that we're gonna have as a team, except for the send off and things like that. Like I want to see Malik Tillman play. Like I want to see
yeah,
him play those minutes. I don't know if I want to see Gio Reyna even like play those minutes. So I it's going to be interesting that camp, Tony. When we get that list of players, people are going to be
field day,
on the Twitter fingers. Like, is that
yeah.
there's going to be somebody's favorite player left off, and it's going to be interesting to watch. But Tony, we got a lot out of this episode than I thought we would, and that's just what the MLS does. That's what Team USA does, and we appreciate them for that. We appreciate you guys listening and tuning in. We are continuing just the Friday episode for now. Come February, we'll be ramping things back up once MLS starts creeping along. We are really close. It's kind of like strange how close it is
Yeah.
already. So we're excited. We will see you guys next Friday. Be sure to follow us on socials. Instagram, TikTok is where we're most heavy. We do some Twitter and things like that, but those two you'll find us the most. So be sure to follow us there, and we will see you guys next Friday.
See you.